Hi, welcome to today's lesson. Today we're going to explore how accepting others can lead to trust and lasting success on an epic scale with our lesson question, how did religious tolerance help the Ottoman and Mughal empires succeed? Let's start by identifying the goals for this lesson. We are going to learn about the Ottoman and Mughal empires by describing the achievements of the Ottoman Empire, as well as describing the achievements of the Mughal Empire. And then we're going to explain how the Ottoman and Mughal empires ruled diverse people. Let's start with your words to know, which today are primary, Ghazi, Janissaries, Devshirme, Sikhism, and Sultan. The Ottomans and Mughals created strong empires by blending the cultures of the people they conquered. Their social and artistic influence is still felt throughout southern Asia today. We've already looked at our lesson goals and our vocabulary for this lesson, so we're ready to begin. Let's begin by looking at what happens when cultures collide. In 1200 CE, the Old World Order was in decline. The Byzantine Empire was a fraction of its former size. The Islamic Caliphate was trying to fight off Mongol invaders. Into this void, a new power would rise, the Ottoman Turks, who would conquer and rule the region until World War I in the early 1900s. This painting here depicts the Battle of Varna, which was fought in 1444 between the Ottoman Sultan Murad II and Poles and Hungarians. This battle is significant because it led to the death of Vladislav III, who was king of Poland, Hungary, and Croatia, and it removed a significant opposition to Ottoman expansion into Central and Eastern Europe. Earlier in the lesson, we looked at our lesson goals and vocabulary, and we explored the decline of the Byzantine Empire. Part of what led to the successful rise of the Ottoman and Mughal empires was that the leaders were tolerant of religious and cultural differences that existed. We'll begin by looking more closely at the rise of the Ottoman Empire, including how Constantinople was taken and what happened afterward. As the Byzantine Empire, shown here on the map, declined, the Ottoman Empire rose to take its place. The Ottoman Empire began in Anatolia and was founded by Muslim warriors called Ghazi, who believed that it was their duty to take lands from non-Muslims. They were similar to the Christian knights of the Middle Ages. Ghazi Osman began to conquer neighboring lands. Ghazi Westerners called Ghazi Osman, also known as Osman I, Othman, and named his followers Ottomans. This is where the name Ottoman comes from. The Ottomans used advanced military technology. They were successful militarily because they used gunpowder. They were among the first to use cannons in battle. The Ottomans established a formal government and continued their successful military expansion under the leaders Orhan, Murad, and Bayezid I. The Ottoman Empire would grow and expand and would rule the region until World War I. Next, we will learn about life under Ottoman rule. In addition to advanced military technology, the Ottoman Empire was successful because of their governmental structure. The Ottoman Empire had a complex and efficient system of government. The Sultan was the supreme political and military leader, and non-Muslims were given freedom of worship. Enslaved persons of the Devshirme system held government positions, or were used as janissaries, or soldiers. Beginning in the 14th century, the Ottoman Empire used the Devshirme, or child contribution system. Under this governmental system, young boys, mostly Christian boys, were recruited by force by the Ottoman government. Although these boys were enslaved by the state, most considered it an honor, as the most promising of the Defshurm were educated in many subjects, including languages, math, calligraphy, religion, horsemanship, and/or weaponry, and were often selected for privileged positions, becoming government officials, physicians, architects, judges, and even provincial governors. Other members of the Defshurm formed the Janissary infantry, like the Islamic Caliphate before them. The Ottomans granted freedom of worship to non-Muslims. Next, you will learn about the rule of Mehmed II. The Sultan Mehmed II was one of the most powerful sultans of the Ottoman Empire. Mehmed II's father, Murad II, won the Battle of Varna and placed his 12-year-old son on the throne of the Ottoman Empire. However, Mehmed II wasn't yet ready to rule, and 2 years later, at the advice of his advisors, Murad II returned to the throne. 2 years later, Murad II passed away, and Mehmed II again took control over the Ottoman Empire. He was one of the most powerful sultans of the Ottoman Empire. What are sultans? Muslim rulers. He became known as Mehmed the Conqueror. 2 years after returning to the throne, Mehmed II conquered Constantinople and set his eyes on expanding his empire. Mehmed conquered Constantinople, and this expanded the Ottoman control into Eastern Europe. But he wanted to do it in a way that would ensure a successful, long-lasting culture. When Mehmed II conquered Constantinople, he changed the name of the city to Istanbul and made it the new capital of the Ottoman Empire. Mehmed wanted the new Ottoman capital, Istanbul, to be a beautiful, prosperous city. He turned the Hagia Sophia, this church here, into a mosque. The Hagia Sophia was the most important church in the Eastern Orthodox faith. The minarets shown here in this photo are Islamic architectural features that were added after the church became a mosque. While Istanbul was a predominantly Christian city, in order to ensure that his empire's conquest was successful, Mehmed tolerated religious diversity. He instituted what would become known as the Millet system. The word Millet is Arabic for nation. Under the Millet system, each religious group was its own nation within the Ottoman nation and was allowed to elect or appoint their own leader to enforce the laws of their own religion. Mehmed's multicultural approach proved very successful. By 1525, Istanbul was the largest city in Europe. Now, let's check your understanding of what you've learned. Two important Ottoman sultans include Mehmed II's son, Bayezid II, and his son, Selim I. Bayezid II, son of Mehmed II, was devoted to building universities, hospitals, and mosques, and he welcomed Jews and Muslims who were expelled during the Spanish Inquisition. Recall our lesson question here. How did religious tolerance help the Ottoman Empire succeed? Let's continue with Selim I, the son of Bayezid II. He was an Ottoman sultan from 1512 to 1520. As a result of his father's legacy of tolerance, Selim was able to expand the Ottoman Empire to include Egypt, Syria, and Palestine, and was given keys to Mecca to symbolize his leadership of the Islamic world. Under Mehmed II, Bayezid II, and Selim I, the expansion of the Ottoman Empire continued. In the 1500s, the Ottomans captured the two holiest cities in Islam, Medina and Mecca. They also captured Egypt and Cairo, pictured in this region here. These were considered the academic center of the Muslim world. Although the Ottoman Empire expanded under previous leaders, it was during the reign of Suleiman that the empire would reach its greatest size. Let's take a closer look at Suleiman the Magnificent. Suleiman I assumed power in 1520 and built upon his predecessor's accomplishments. He was called Suleiman the Magnificent and Suleiman the Lawgiver, and he oversaw great advances in the arts, architecture, and law. He also created a code of law that dealt with criminal and civil issues and expanded the empire into Eastern Europe. Suleiman surrounded himself with expert advisors and routinely sought their opinions. Under Suleiman, the Ottoman Empire reached its peak. For this, Suleiman I is known as Suleiman the Magnificent. Let's take a closer look at Suleiman's system of government. You've just learned how Mehmed helped build the Ottoman Empire into a powerful force and captured the city of Constantinople, and how Suleiman I created a strong government that included religious tolerance. Now, let's take a look at the creation of the Mughal Empire. After the fall of the Gupta Empire, India was broken up into small kingdoms. As the Gupta Empire declined, Muslim invaders began to compete to conquer lands in India. They came from Arabia and Turkey and fought each other and the local Hindu for hundreds of years. The Mughals created a large empire in India and brought together people of different cultures. One Turkish sultan began to build a huge army and started to create an empire of his own. His name was Babur. Babur was the first of the Mughal emperors, and he took that office in 1526. He was considered a brilliant military general. He respected the beliefs of those he conquered. And although the Mughals were Muslims, most of the people in their empire were not. One of his first acts after establishment of the empire was to forbid the killing of cows because that was offensive to Hindus. He did, however, tax non-Muslims and reserved the highest degree of power and privilege to those of his own faith. Babur was an intelligent and capable leader whose ideas inspired the Mughal emperors who followed. Later, when the Mughal Empire reached its height, equality and coexistence were more strongly encouraged. Three very different cultures interacted during the 200 years of the Mughal Empire. Remember, Islam was the main religion of the Mughals. But there were other religions practiced throughout the empire. Sikhism was at the time a relatively new religion. It split from Hinduism in the 1500s. Sikhism is monotheistic and concentrates on doing good works. Sikhs also reject the Hindu caste system, which teaches that those born into lower classes should be content with their place in society. To maintain stability, Mughal rulers needed to find ways to balance religious differences among the people. Let's look at how an important Mughal empire or emperor worked toward that goal. A key figure in the multicultural success of the Mughal Empire was its emperor, Akbar. Akbar greatly expanded the empire, though it grew further after his death in 1605. He also reigned during a period of stability and unity, and he defended religious freedom and promoted tolerance, welcoming influence from many cultures. But Akbar himself abandoned Islam and created his own religion, combining aspects of many other religions, including Hinduism and Christianity. By granting freedom to those who did not share Muslim beliefs, Akbar gained the loyalty of people of all religions. Let's take a closer look at Akbar's leadership. Akbar led an expansion of the Mughal Empire. He placed Hindus and Sikhs into positions of high authority. He ended taxes that non-Muslims had been required to pay and did not force non-Muslims to obey Islamic law. By granting freedom to those who did not share Muslim beliefs, Akbar gained the loyalty of people of all religions. Akbar's achievements were numerous. Many believe he lived up to his name, which means greatest one. Today, he is remembered as one of the greatest rulers in history. The Taj Mahal was constructed during the reign of Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan was Akbar's grandson. He had this structure built to hold the tomb of his beloved wife who died in childbirth. This is the best-known example of Mughal architecture. The Mughal Empire was powerful and grand, but future leaders would reverse the successful policies of Akbar. Although the Mughal Empire grew to its fullest extent under the 49-year rule of Emperor Aurangzeb, his policies led to its decline. Aurangzeb was intolerant of non-Muslims and excluded them from positions in government and levied heavy taxes on them. He destroyed Hindu schools and temples and arrested and executed Sikh religious leaders. And the high taxes he imposed left much of the empire in poverty. On top of that, by this time, Britain and other European colonies were competing to establish trading posts in India, and it was becoming harder for local Indian leaders to resist this expansion. After Aurangzeb's death, the empire went into decline. By reversing the policies that had made the empire stable, Aurangzeb brought about its downfall. His successors were unable to repair the damage he had caused, and the Mughal Empire collapsed about 50 years after his death. Here are some of the highlights of the period you've just studied. You can see here how the empires grew and fell in relation to each other. With the Ottoman Empire here, lasting over 600 years, and the Mughal Empire here. On this timeline, what's important to note is that the rise of the Ottoman Empire happened shortly after the end of Islam's Golden Age, which occurred with the Mongol conquest of Baghdad.